How's it going, everyone? This is MindBlank. Welcome back to my channel, where today we are making an awesome $600 complete red, white and black AMD build featuring the FX-8300 and a Radeon RX 470. Alright, and I should mention this will be a two-part video, with the first part covering everything up until final touches and wire management. Those two, alongside of course benchmarks, will be in the second video. So there's that, and let's get to it! I'll come clean here. I haven't built an FX8 series PC ever. I've built and owned more AMD machines than Intel in my lifetime, so I am familiar with things, but never an 8 series PC. So this will be my very first one, and I am extremely eager to see what this aging processor can still pull off. I think this is an excellent first PC build for anyone. It's priced very well, will look great and perform great, I am sure of it. The stars of this show are the CPU, the FX-8300, and the MSI Gaming X Radeon RX 470, which I've reviewed recently, and you can see the review here. In no particular order here, so I'll just start with the case. This is the Bitfinex Nios with the windowed side panel. It's an ATX form factor case, compact but definitely well made. It has an all-red mesh type front grille, which looks clean and contrasts the white case just perfectly. The insides did not let me down. There's side-mounted storage caddies and wire management cutouts to make things neat. It can accommodate large graphics cards without issue, comes with only one fan, and also has USB 2.0, 3.0 and audio jacks up top for easy access. The CPU is the FX-8300, a 3.3 GHz CPU, which has an awesome price. All FX8 series CPUs are the same and come unlocked, so only megahertz are separating this from the top dog, the FX-9590. I plan on overclocking this, hence the huge cooler that you saw. I'm really curious of how the CPU will perform in this combo at 1080p. The motherboard is an ASRock 970 board with the Southbridge SB950, and it is proof that on an aging platform you can still be up to date with your features. This is Crossfire ready and also has two PCIe X1 slots, an M2 PCIe slot, a USB 3.1 and two USB 3.0 ports available at the back, as well as a Type-C. It comes with 6 SATA 3 ports, 7.1 audio with LNAC caps, and finally an 8+2 VRM phase design with DDR3 2400 support. Top all of this with an extremely appealing black PCB and red heatsinks and a cool digital camo type design around the CPU socket. For storage, I opted only for an SSD, a 240GB 8 data SATA 3 part that sports 500 plus megabytes per second read-write. 240GB should be enough to hold the operating system as well as a slew of games that you play regularly. Powering it all is a Corsair VS550 PSU. No one should underestimate the PSU, and this above all else needs to be a quality component. For the most part, this is a quality PSU and should have no issues, providing it's rated 550 watts. It is nothing extra fancy, not modular, but it is quiet during load and doesn't get excessively hot. For the memory, I opted for a Patriot Viper 8GB 1600MHz kit, and I think 8GB is still doable for 1080p, which this system is intended to power. Also, this can easily be upgraded in the future with more and faster RAM. The CPU cooler might be an odd pick for some of you, and this is because this is an extremely old cooler initially released in the Pentium 4 and AMD K8 days. In 2016 it is still a relevant part and shows it due to its low price and very good performance. It is very large and barely fits the case, with the top being almost flush with the glass window. This was intentional for me for that protruding V8 look. Of course you can pick whatever else you like here. For GPU horsepower, I chose the MSI Gaming X Radeon RX 470, which was reviewed here, so please check the review out. This is a very nicely priced RX 470 with excellent cooling, looks and acoustics. A great pick for a sub $200 GPU, which will undoubtedly perform well at 1080p on this system. And this price range, I cannot recommend a better GPU unless you also consider buying used or getting a GTX 1060 3GB, but its VRAM is a little limiting in my opinion, even for 1080p. For cooling at the front, I opted for these red-lit AeroCool 120mm fans. They are quiet and get the job done. Also use some Fantex sleeved extension cables to make things look just fantastic. These are the only parts not included in the build cost, but they add up to around $15 only. Well, let's get to it and start building this system. I am extremely anxious to see if this turns out looking the way I imagined it in my head before getting the parts. Just before we start, I wanted to share this with you. Check out how small the included AMD CPU cooler is compared to the Tunic. First step is to mount motherboard components with it off the case for easier access. And we're starting with the CPU, of course. Lift the metal lever straight up and align the golden triangle on the CPU with the according triangle on the CPU socket. It slides in place without force. Then close the lever and secure it. Easy. Check to see if the CPU is flush to the socket, as I've seen a lot of bad mounts. The Tunic CPU cooler comes with included paste, so you don't have to buy separately, but most of you who follow different videos of mine on the channel know that I'm a big fan of Cool Laboratory Liquid Ultra, practically use it as ketchup, so this was no exception. This is very hard to get to stick to anything, but patience is the key here. After 10 minutes of spreading, it ended up looking like this, but of course this also has to be done to the heatsink, so I proceeded to spread for another 10 painstaking minutes until everything looked good. Although this is an old CPU cooler, it does come with an updated AM3 bracket and is very easy to install just by lever work and force. This is how it looks installed to the CPU and motherboard. It is a fairly secure system, but it does rotate if force is applied to it. The cooler is inside the heatsink for this model, so we need to secure it by 4 screws. This is also a good time to plug the fan connector in. Then we are off to the RAM, which again is another simple install. Just align the notches and firmly press it into the socket until the side clips click in place. This is where we are at the moment, with 3 components installed to the motherboard, but before slotting it in the case, we need to install the included I/O shield by pressing firmly on the sides until you hear clicking sounds. This Bitfinex case only comes with 3 motherboard standoffs, and the reason for that is the case has these protrusions, so you need to install standoffs if you opt for another case that doesn't have these protrusions, if you don't want to fry the board. Secure the motherboard to the case by screws and you should be looking like this. Already it is taking shape and looking awesome. For this case, you should route the CPU power connector through the back before mounting the motherboard. I forgot about this and had to take it all off to hide that pesky CPU power cable. And this is how flush the CPU cooler is to the case. There is no more room for anything else. I like this protruding engine look personally. Installing the PSU is extremely easy. There's 4 screws that hold it in place. Here I had already connected the 24-pin ATX and CPU power cables using the Fantex extensions. This is how the CPU power cable was initially routed over the cooler. As I mentioned, I went back and slotted it behind the motherboard just to make it super clean. The black cable you see is the front USB 3.0, and there was no other option besides routing through the back of the cooler. The GPU was another easy install. It slides into the PCIe slot. I fastened it with a screw on the rear and used the extension cable from Fantex to complement the look. Connect the power, reset and light cables, and this is a great time to do a quick check to see if the system turns on and works before you go any further. We are stopping here for the moment, but there is still a lot of work to be done. And this wraps up the first part of the video, with the second part covering final touches, wire management and of course benchmarks. But meanwhile, I want to see your comments down below, and thank you for supporting this channel by subscribing. See you next time everybody, bye bye.